Wonderful. Good morning, y'all. We're so excited to be here, and thank you for taking the time to listen to us. So when we first arrived here, we had the privilege to walk around downtown Rocky Mount, and we were inquired to talk about what we saw, and one word was on repeat, and that word was vacancy. We were shocked by the absence of storefronts, confused by the heavy police presence, but awed by the beauty of historic downtown. As the next day, we had the privilege to talk to community members, and 3 values arose as areas of focus: policy, optics, and people. POP, if you will. Today, we want to dive into these categories using a solution-oriented mentality. I'm Riley White.
I'm Susanna Owen.
I'm Noah Nunnett.
I'm Sophia Fontecchio.
And I'm Cameron Johnson, and we're Team Minneapolis.
So to start, we want to talk about optics, just the idea of strengthening downtown Rocky Mount through art, direction, and marketing. So to start, we had another team that talked about murals, but we think this idea is beautiful and has a great way of revitalizing spaces in affordable and impactful ways. We want to bring up the idea of an I Imagine campaign in which public school students have the opportunity to design murals that can be featured in their town and inquire a unique way to get families and communities involved in touring and walking around downtown Rocky Mount. These are 2 examples of murals that are in other locations. The first one is in South Franklin, Utah, and is a mural that was designed by local elementary school students. And the one below is one that's in Wilson, North Carolina, was not designed by students, but just highlights the beauty found in a small town.
Next, moving on to signs and directions. So imagine a young family with 2 kids who have an hour and a half between events at the event center, or perhaps an individual who is done for the day and is wondering what to do next. They walk out of the event center towards their cars, and then they see some clear signage directing them towards downtown, advertising what the city has to offer, such as parks, the Children's Museum, and successful restaurants. They also noticed maps inside the event center, as well as signage, flyers, and perhaps even community members greeting them and forging initial relationships. These signs and directions are simple initial steps that can connect visitors in the event center to the downtown and draw them in. And they build on existing assets that the city has, such as a parks and recreation system, and draw people in. Furthermore, the town can develop its marketing campaign and branding style. And so we must inquire and determine how the city wants to brand itself in a way that embraces its past and moves towards a successful future. And so this can be done through touching up and modernizing the city's website to make it appealing for people who may be looking for information if they're visiting or considering investing in the town or perhaps even moving here. In addition to the website, a social media campaign supporting local businesses and connecting those visiting to the town and its attractions would be very helpful. And so this can be done in coordination with local businesses, the government, and the event center. And overall, these optics, murals, signs, and marketing are the short-term steps that can spark excitement and motivation to power long-term projects.
Now, I think we could all agree that we could have the greatest social media campaign, we could have the best branding, but none of that would matter with nothing there. So the way that we're going to implement all these things is through policy, incentivizing citizens to invest in downtown Rocky Mount through policy action. First thing that I would like to speak about is tax incentives. We'd offer a rebate on increased property taxes over 5 years, 75% in year 1, decreasing by 15% after year 3. We've seen this work successfully in Detroit, Michigan, and this is how that they revitalized Detroit, Michigan. Next will be rezoning. There are 3 topics that I would like to hit on: establishing advisory committees, monitoring developing trends, and adjusting policies as necessary. There are 2 different counties here in Rocky Mount, and we need to make sure that the economy is shared equally and it is fair between each of them. So whether it's opening businesses fairly on each side or hotels, which we'll get into later. Next, we'll talk about grants. So the grants that I'd like to speak about are to renovate the vacant spaces that are currently in downtown Rocky Mount. We could be using those for businesses or even residential use for these business owners or just visitors. We need to restore the storefronts, and we need to foster a more inclusive environment for the entrepreneurs. And here I have a QR code with a list of hundreds of grants that we could apply for in Rocky Mount.
And the final approach that we want to highlight is people. People are the way to truly bring life into Rocky Mount. We can have policy, we can have optics, but the people will bring businesses back into downtown, which is why we want to equip the people of Rocky Mount with the skills and resources to develop and sustain businesses downtown through two main approaches. First, we want to encourage people living downtown. We have talked to constituents, and that is one of the main focuses that they have said, is that there are not enough residents truly living in downtown Rocky Mount. And by utilizing the grants that Noah has already discussed, we want to restore historic buildings to embrace the historic architecture of downtown while increasing both affordable and luxury housing. And this would overall increase foot traffic. And a really good example of this that has already worked very successfully is 5 Points Crossing. And next, we want to implement mentorship programs. Now, we would like to implement a Rocky Mount-sponsored mentorship program that would bring together experienced business owners with potential business owners of all different education levels, economic backgrounds, and geographic backgrounds. And doing this would develop skills in business ownership and specific business skills such as restaurant management, and could equip these citizens of Rocky Mount with the skills needed to bring life back into downtown and bring businesses back. And we want to do this through either a community workshop that could take place at the event center, or even a 3-month-long course at a college or the event center that would equip these people with the skills necessary.
And so to conclude, you've heard about policy, optics, and people, but you've also heard how they work together. Policy alone doesn't work. Optics alone doesn't work. Neither do people. People don't come without optics, and they don't come without policy. These things are necessary to happen simultaneously in order to engage the citizens and visitors of downtown Rocky Mount. You see engage in bright red letters in the middle. That's the main principle. We have to engage citizens and visitors of Rocky Mount to make downtown Rocky Mount pop. Thank you.
Our wonderful panelists.
You got it. All right. Well, what I'll say is I love a lot of components to your presentation, and in fact, we're doing a lot of these things, and they are working at lesser degrees. Things I love the community engagement component, because that's where you get buy-in, and that's really where you make it happen. I love the communication. It's fairly cost-effective, it's efficient, and it can be very effective in the process. Policy and creating grants. So we do have grants here for facades. The challenge that we're having, the challenge that I think that is missing a little bit in the presentation, is finding the right people to do these things. Right? Everybody, in my experience, and what I do for a living is a managed family office, and we buy businesses and we try to grow them, right? And that's really a people development business. Finding the right people for the seed that have the vision to build a business. All too often I see people that get excited about a notion, they go to take a class and think they have the answer, but they've ignored things like working capital, they've ignored what is it going to take for me to be able to sustain my business that really is the undergirding of the economic success. And so that's been our challenge. And so I like the presentation. I'm telling you, they're working. We are doing a lot of these things. And it's a slow cut. But I think that one of the things that would be beneficial in this presentation is how do you identify those people, where they're going to come from. They're not just natives, they're not just folks who, we got to create traffic downtown. There's a chicken or an egg situation, we've got to figure that through. But policies work for sure. It does create some incentives. We are in an opportunity zone that does bring some opportunity there. We do create some of these grants, and so on balance, I like the presentation.
I agree with a lot of what the mayor said. I particularly thought y'all hit the nail pretty good when you talked about grants you talked about tax incentive programs and zoning. When you address zoning, Mayor, forgive me for saying this, sometimes the city of Rocky Mount ain't customer friendly. And one of the zoning issues could be, one of the issues could be the zoning and the permitting process. So I think y'all were very on target to mention that. The mentorship sounds good, but I like how practical it is and how do you do it. And I think the best way to do the mentorship is through apprentice programs. And I think we get those at the community college level and then get the buy-in from the shop owner to take the guy. I like that a lot about getting young people involved in the process. But overall, I'd say you all did it pretty good. Not much pie in the sky, so congratulations.
If I could, so you mentioned who to find for these grants, and that's why we bring all these together, policy with the grants and then optics and then the people. The optics are super important because we don't know who to find. That's why it's so important that these optics, social media, and increasing foot traffic. What if somebody comes here and they love the town and they want to move here? So then what's the next step? You look up online. And so that's where these optics are super important to find people, because I think that when people want to find it, they'll find it themselves.
I think there's some truth to that. However, again, capitalization and know-how and experience are really what makes it sustainable. And so I think we're thinking here locally, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
But I think that the mission in terms of recruitment needs to expand out beyond Rocky Mount. Because a lot of times, I live here on my lawn. A lot of times I don't see, the forest for the trees. But we have people come in from out of town saying, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. We've got great bones. We can do something with this." So how do you create that? Finding those people that are well capitalized who understand what they're doing and how to go about doing it. And create the opportunities for those guys. Create the incentives. So you're right, they will find